Yo, what's up, Blackish fam? I hope all is well and everyone's enjoying this good start to the new year. Obviously, today is a special day. We show honor to Martin Luther King Jr. And what type of university would we be if we didn't just react to spoken word and poetry and hip hop? Let's look at one of Martin Luther King Jr.'s his best speeches. A lot of people consider it his best speech. It's considered the I Have a Dream speech. And we can do a reaction video just shining a light, showing respect to Martin Luther King Jr., going over his ideas and letting him know that he didn't die in vain, right? Without further ado, let's get right to it.
Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. I am happy to join with you today in what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation.
All right, now. Yeah, think about the energy there, right? It kind of reminds me of the night that Barack Obama was elected president, right? He became president-elect Obama, right? And the pride, right? Being from Chicago, but also seeing someone who's a black man up there representing, just knowing that change was going to come, right? That feeling, you could see it. Like, look at that look. That's that look, right?
Five score years ago, a great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand today.
And again, I'll bring it back just to make sure we don't miss anything. But for those that don't know, when they say five score, you can think of a score, the easiest way is consider it a period of 20 years. So five score years ago, or five scores, that would be 100 years, right? Because 20, right, times 5 would be 100 years. That's what he's referring to. Building on that, you can see right here he's referring to the Emancipation Proclamation that was signed into effect by President Abraham Lincoln, I believe January 1st of 1863. So that would make sense if he said five score, right, 100 years, that this was in 1963. So again, the Emancipation Proclamation is what Abraham Lincoln signed, basically freeing the slaves.
Proclamation. This momentous decree came as a great beacon light of hope to millions of Negro slaves who had been seared in the flames of withering injustice.
You know, when you think of something being seared, you normally refer to your steak, right, or something. But you think of, being burned by the flames of injustice, right? You're getting treated, right? You're being hurt. You're in a position of pain, and it's coming from injustice.
It came as a joyous daybreak to end the long night of their captivity.
You know, their captivity, right? As slaves. But he's saying it came as a joyous daybreak, right? The day has changed, right? A new day has come.
But 100 years later, the Negro still is not free.
And, one would argue that you can argue these same points today. And when you reference the civil rights movement, if you just kind of use some whiteout, right, and change the year, this is still relevant to the protests that we're seeing today, the injustice that we see today, the police brutality that we see today. There's no difference. If anything, people have gotten wise, and they know how to move, and they know how to discriminate without necessarily saying race.
100 years later, the life of the Negro is still sadly crippled by the manacles of segregation and the chains of discrimination.
And, for those that don't know or might be younger, when you talk about segregating, if you're segregating someone, you're removing them from others, right? You could be segregating an entire population. And of course, discrimination is when you treat that population differently because of that, whatever that might be. In this case, it's the color of their skin, right? So you're segregating them by making them live in different communities, right? Making us do certain things or live a certain way, and discriminating is the actual treatment of us.
100 years later, the Negro lives on a lonely island of poverty. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up, live out the true meaning of its creed.
Wow.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal.
Right, and I always think about Dave Chappelle, right? He says, all men are created equal. Give me a sandwich, right? When he turns around and he whips his slave or whatnot. So again, and I like listening to thought leaders like Malcolm X as well. And Malcolm X has a completely different take on this day. And his approach is one where it's not doing much to dream. We need to act. And I'm all about peaceful protest. But if you put your hands on me, it'll be the last time you put your hands on anyone. There's probably a nice medium right in between those two extremes. But it's great to see this and revisit this. And again, it's still so relevant.
To be self-evident that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will they be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day.
I have a dream that one day there's so much equality that people won't even notice the color of the skin, right? They're not judging her based on that. That kids can play together. And one would argue that a lot of that has come true, right? Kids up to a certain age, they don't really care the color of your skin, right? My daughter is a very Moana looking type, right? She's very mixed. And it's very different. We're in the suburbs of Chicago. It's a predominantly white school. But they don't really care. They all play with each other and joke. It doesn't matter if there's a black girl, an Indian girl, a white one, because they're not really discriminating on anyone yet, right? They don't have these preconceived ideas or these stereotypes that might stop them or prevent them or deter them from hanging out with someone like that yet. Where would you get it from, right? I think a lot of times, subconsciously, you get it from your families. I don't know how many families I've had to check where I'm around someone who might be Mexican or Puerto Rican. I'm mixed. My mom is black. My father's side was Mexican, but his dad, he wasn't really part of my life. I identify mostly as black. And, sometimes I'll catch my minority friends slipping and say some low-key racist ass shit. And it's important that people like us check them, because I'm like, that's how these kids get it. It's these little 3 or 5 year olds running around, and you low-key drop a little dig, you get a little laugh on someone else's expense. That's the type of discrimination that I think is important that we highlight. When you don't say anything and you hear a stupid racist joke, you're part of the problem, right? You're letting people get away with it. I gotta be like, yo, what you saying, bro? Did you just say a joke about a black dude not working or a black dude not being a father, bro? Like, really? Come on, bro. Like, I give you a pass. We're not gonna fight, but I think sometimes we gotta remember that there's certain people that we gotta check, and that's okay, right? There used to be, let's get back to it.
Even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with sweltering with the heat of oppression, be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream.
All right now.
My poor little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream.
And, what it was such a powerful speech, right? We've all heard the quotables, right? The I have a dream, right? I have a dream today. But it's so important to understand. I think Martin Luther King Jr., he's so much more than a quote, right? I think a lot of people are able to quote him, but they don't understand the ins and out of his lifestyle or his education or the way that he lived his life. Like, this is not a myth, right? This is not a fairy tale. This was a real man that dedicated his life to civil rights. And I think the least we can do is understand more about him. And we hope to do that. With our channel, we try to consider ourselves modern day griots, right? Passing down information from generation to the next. Stuff that you might not necessarily know, right? It's not just music reactions, but sometimes you have to do what you have to do what you want to do.
I have a dream that one day, down in Alabama, with its vicious races, with its governor having his lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification, one day right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream.
Powerful.
I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted, and every hill and mountain shall be made low, the rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight, and the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all the flesh shall see it together. This is our hope. This is the faith that I go back to the South with. With this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day.
It's such an intelligent man, and you have to stop and ask yourself, when you have these very intellectual leaders or people that have these leadership qualities mixed with intelligence and charisma, why the nation tries to silence them, right? And you see that with people like Marcus Garvey, Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, and one would even argue like the Tupacs of this world, right? Who has the most incentive? Who's incentivized if these people were taken out of the picture? I read something one day that explained that it's so funny that this little minority in our world, right, controls so much leadership. One would argue that we're in fact not the minority. Most people in the world are actually brownish or blackish. They're people of color, right? If we were all unified, there would be no arguing. We would be demanding the civil rights. We would be demanding justice because we were in more of a position of power. And I think that's really important to think of when you have perspective, when you think about these, you think about civil rights and changing laws. You have to be active. If people were simply more active, there's so many things that we can do. And that starts at your local level. Like, you don't have to be making phone calls for the next Obama and cold calling, right? But it could just be sharing something online, having the conversation with a friend, asking them to vote, or doing your part in something, right? Just something, anything, to keep inching the movement ahead, right? Let's get back to it.
This will be the day when all of God's children be able to sing with new meaning, my country tears of thee. Sweet land of liberty of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrims pride. From every mountainside, let freedom ring. And if America is to be a great nation, this must become true. And so let freedom ring from the prodigious hilltops of New Hampshire.
Wow, that's such a beautiful image, right? So many, not just people of color, but there's a lot of white people there as well, right? There's been a lot of white people throughout history that have not supported slavery. So don't be so quick to just hate all white people, right? Now, there's a lot of them that are good, just like all brothers ain't bad, right? All Mexicans aren't illegal, right? All Jamaicans don't drive taxis or whatever. All Chinese people can't drive, right? These are stereotypes, and they're not always. They sometimes have some truth, and they are hilarious, but we got to be careful with that. But it's beautiful to see this, and again, it's just still so relevant. But it's so important what he's saying too, that we need to do something, right? But it's important to also note that a lot of these songs just weren't meant for us. The judicial system wasn't created for us. And a lot of these freedom shouts and then this history, the stories aren't for us. We're going to have our own stories. And we're going to have some of our own holidays. And there's going to be some of our own civil rights leaders like Martin Luther King, like Marcus Garvey, like Malcolm X, that we will celebrate. But there will be a change. When that happens, I don't know. But for this nation to be a great nation, they need to come to the terms that white people simply don't have all of the power anymore. It needs to be distributed equally. We're not even fighting for all power. There's been no change for so long that something's going to give, and it's got to give soon.
Let freedom reign from the mighty mountains of New York. Let freedom reign from the heightening Alleghenies of Pennsylvania. Let freedom reign from the snow-capped Rockies of Colorado. Let freedom reign from the curvaceous slopes of California. But not only that, let freedom reign from Stone Mountain of Georgia. Let freedom reign from Lookout Mountain of Tennessee. Let freedom reign from every hill and molehill of Mississippi, from every mountainside. Let freedom reign from
And I know a lot about Martin Luther King Jr., but not a lot about his personal life. Even though I've started to look into this more as an adult, explore leaders like himself as well as Malcolm X, and I do get there's something about Malcolm X's more fiery tone. I like what he says, like, we're peaceful until you're not peaceful, right? But we need to act. We need to do something. And again, I think it's somewhere in the middle where we need to be, because you don't want to just do chants and peaceful protests, but at the same time, you have to be careful about the image. I don't know that the Nation of Islam has always put the best image forth. I think a lot of people were fearful, and rightfully so, right? And that's part of it too, right? Would you rather be feared or worshipped, right? Or however that quote is.
when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, free at last, thank God Almighty, free at last.
Just so powerful, right? I think it's important that we remember his legacy and we keep this moving forward. But Martin Luther King Jr., he's so much more than just quotes, right? He dedicated his entire life and really paid the ultimate price for just not being silent, right? This man was educated. This man had met the love of his life. He had wonderful kids. He didn't have to give his life to the civil rights movement. So we need to think about that, and we need to remember that. We need to honor that on his day. Yeah, we're off school. Yeah, we're off work, and we might just be kicking it on this third Monday, right? Is it the third Monday, if I'm not mistaken, in January that we honor him? But he's just so much more. It's important to just keep that legacy alive. If you're a fan, not just of good music, but also get into word, right? Sometimes you just need some guidance, knowledge, and conversation that you just don't find in regular school. Welcome to Blackish University. We check out everything from music, poetry, spoken word, and look at us now. I have a dream speech, right? Let's get it.